Hi friends, this is Emily with the Iron Bridge Farm, and I have with me here an Iron Bridge chicken. This was processed on October 2nd, and this is how it will look when you receive your chicken. It's in a vacuum sealed bag like this. This one has been frozen and thawed. So this is what it looks like after it's been thawed and after it's been in the freezer. So this is Cornish cross chicken, and something that's ideal about these chickens is they're known for meat. They have a broad breast, so lots of white meat there for you. And this is a 5.9 pound chicken. This is quite a sizable chicken, but this is about our average size bird. So as you see next to my hands there, it's hefty. This is the back. There is some liquid from where it has thawed, but it's got the wings here tight next to it. And here's the neck that comes up around here. So we do sell all the birds with the neck. It's great for stock. And I have my pot here next to me that I'm gonna be putting the parts into as we go, so we can make our stock later. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this open and we'll get started. We're gonna teach you today how to quarter the chicken. I'm just gonna get the liquid out, and then I'm gonna put the bag in here as well. Okay, so here's the chicken. And as you see, this here has the feet tucked, so we always tuck the feet under in the skin. It just helps with packaging and it keeps it all together. And you can, if you were to roast the bird whole, you can absolutely leave it like this, and it keeps everything kind of together while it cooks, okay? So the first thing I like to do when we quarter a chicken is I kind of open him up a little bit. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't let this thaw quite enough, so there's gonna be some ice on mine from where he didn't fully thaw, but that's okay because I'm gonna cook him. So I just like to open everything up, and if yours is thawed, I promise it will go a little bit smoother. So I like to start with the legs. So we cut down through the skin. And I'm going to use my fingers. You don't have to, I'll show you, you don't have to go this intensely with it because yours won't have ice in it if you leave it long enough, but this is a good example if it is a little bit frozen. So I just kind of separated the ice. So once I cut through the skin, the leg is not attached except for at the hip joint to the breast of the bird. So then you'll just be able to cut through the skin, just like so. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So cut through the skin, separate that leg from the body. Okay. And I like to leave the skin here. See how there's the skin left? I like to try and leave that attached to the back. So I'm gonna cut through the skin now at the base of the breast. Okay. So then you flip the chicken over, and the first thing you have to do is pop the hip joints out. So I put my fingers under the legs, and the hip joints are right here. You see these two parts here? It's called the oyster, that's muscle, and right beneath that is gonna be the hip joints. So if you push down, you'll be able to pop those right out, and you'll hear it probably there. Since it's frozen, it's a little tougher, but that's okay. So there, it popped right out, and now they're much looser. So from here, you can see the hip joint where it came through, and then you're just gonna follow along this path here. You wanna take this meat out with the thigh, and you're gonna go right along this way. So I'm just gonna take my knife and cut along like that, and then use the weight of the bird, and I look on this side to make sure I don't cut through the hip bone, and you just cut the leg right off. So there's your leg, and this is the thigh and the drumstick, and so that's still attached. I'm just gonna leave skin on and set him to the side. Now I do the same thing on the other side. So just cut through that skin right there, cut that back portion off, and then cut down the back. And then so there's my other thigh and leg quarter. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is the wings. The wings I think are a little tricky, but that's just my own opinion. They're not hard. I just always seem to struggle with the wings. But again, mine is nice and frozen still, so that's obviously not gonna be right. But the same thing that we did with the leg, you need to separate the skin so that you can expose the joint. So I'm just cutting kind of right down underneath the wing. And once you've cut the skin, then you can pop the joint out. And so there I've popped the joint. And then you just can continue to follow that around. So there's the wing. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. There I pop the joint. And there's the wing. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is remove the breast from the back. There's a couple different ways you can do this, but what I like to do is take my knife, and the ribs are really fragile. They'll cut with your knife. So there's a little bit of a line right here that I like to follow with my knife. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And I just kind of follow through that line. And I'm gonna be really careful so I don't cut myself. Because as you hear, there's still some ice in there. So I'm gonna run it under some water and see if I can thaw some of that ice out so I don't cut myself, okay? Okay, so I've rinsed my bird, kind of helped de-thaw it. I really didn't want to cut myself, so let's see if it's any better. Yes, okay. So there, I've already cut through the ribs, so that's how easy it was to cut through those rib bones. And then I'm gonna do the other side. So as you see, there's that little line that goes right down there, and that's what we're cutting. This is the breast meat, and all this we're gonna save for our stock. Okay, and where I'm cutting all the way to is all the way up to where our wing was attached at there. Let me just cut through this at the back. Okay, so now that is unattached from the back on both sides. And the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna have a hard time describing this because you really just have to feel it. But I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and cut through this right here. So on the neck, the skin is here attached. When we need to separate that from the skin on the breast, because that's gonna help us when we go to remove it. So I'm just gonna take my knife and slice through that. And the same thing over here. I can stick my finger right here and just separate that skin. Okay, so that's gonna make this part a little bit easier. I guess it's the clavicle, the collarbone of the chicken. It's attached here at where the wing was on both sides. That's what's gonna give loose. So I just kind of push down and hold it and then separate that way. And when I do that, it opens up these two joints here, and I'm just gonna cut right through that. Okay, so that's cut through, and that's cut through. All right, so now my breast is separate from my neck. this is gonna go right into my stock pot, and all of this is going to be excellent for stock. So there's a lot of fat on here down by the skin, and that's gonna really add flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put that right in my pot. I'm gonna move my wings and my leg over. Okay, so this part can be a little tricky, and I'm not gonna lie, it's probably not gonna work for me, but I'm gonna show you anyway how we separate the breasts. When we quarter our chickens, we quarter them bone in. So we leave the ribs, and there's a little bit of bone at the top that is also in. So I will show you how to do that. I'll show you this way. This here is called the keel bone, and that is what we're trying to take out. That is holding the two breasts together. So there's a piece of cartilage up here at the top that we have to cut through. And so it is possible to just kind of slice through that, and I'm going to turn it around so it's easier for me. And you don't have to cut all the way through it, okay? It's just a little bit more of like scoring. And then I'm going to turn it over, and the next thing I'm going to do is cut in half, cut my skin. And then what you have here on top, that's your keel bone. So that kind of is right here in the middle. And I just like to separate a little tiny bit from this side, and it makes it easier on the other side. And again, just cut down a little. And this is the part where you either get it perfectly or you have to struggle a little bit. But I just take my hand and push down, and it should snap open, and it did not. So I'm just gonna do it that way. You're trying to break open the breast to reveal this keel bone here. And so we did get it to open up. So just come down and score this cartilage, and that opens it up a little bit more. And at this point, you're just separating, and you can use your fingers. You're just separating the breast from that bone. Okay, so there's one side. Now I'm gonna work on this other side. It's usually you either get them both at the same time or you have to struggle a little bit. So we're gonna struggle just a little bit, but it is possible to just pop it right out. And again, it is a little frozen. Just poor planning on my part. Okay. So we're just going to cut right along that bone, and it will cut right out of there. So there you go. There's the keel bone. So mine is broken in half, but that's okay. And it just goes right into the stock. So again, this is what you're left with, is your skin on, bone in breast pieces. And what you have, so I'll show you here what it looks like. What you have is where the breasts were attached in the center, like this, is your tender. So your tender is right in here. And I'm gonna go ahead and loosen that from itself. And that's your chicken tender is right in here, and that's where that's located. So I'm gonna bake my chicken in the oven, and I will use the drippings for my stock, but that is how you chicken and save the parts for stock.